On July 2nd, the International Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Institute's radar in New Mexico picked up a throbbing signal. The person in control notifies their superior, and they keep looking into where the movement is coming from. They make the implausible assumption that it could be a radio transmission from another planet. They keep digging and eventually figure out that it's emanating from the moon. Despite the government's best efforts, radar receptions are impaired. A celestial body with a diameter of 550 kilometers has entered Earth's orbit. At the White House, President Thomas Whitmore is visited by the Secretary of Defense, who expresses alarm over the situation. The Earth's atmosphere is rapidly approaching a massive extraterrestrial mothership. A New York City cable company employs David Levinson, a satellite technician with a degree from MIT. Due to the malfunctioning satellites, their office becomes exceedingly busy that day. David tries to make sense of it all, but the idea that such massive objects could get so close to Earth is hard for him to accept. A number of smaller spacecraft, called destroyers, are sent out by the mothership. These saucer-shaped spacecraft are approximately 24 kilometers across. The destroyers assume positions over numerous major cities on Earth, such as Moscow, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, and New York. In order to figure out what to do, the president meets with major generals. In a distant Iraqi desert, another soldier enters to tell everyone that the ship is growing and will soon enter Earth's atmosphere. Many have pointed to the enormous cloud swarm that engulfed the spacecraft as the cause. The U.S. government is notified by marine operators who notice this. There is a global outage of television channels, making it nearly impossible for news channels to provide any kind of update. The longer it stays in Earth's shadow. In a state of national emergency, President Whitmore chooses to make a broadcast to the entire country. Seismic events occur nationwide, causing smoke and large cloud chunks to be visible to residents of various cities. Humans are starting to see the spaceship's true colors. It has now positioned itself directly above residential buildings. Towns are in a state of panic. The sight of the spaceship descending from the clouds has the onlookers in utter disbelief. Everyone stops what they're doing to catch a glimpse of the historic, or at least extremely unusual sighting. People begin to flee and seek refuge as a result of this. Automobiles begin crashing into one another, causing utter chaos in the traffic. Instead of running away from their office, David climbs up to the rooftop to examine the spaceship in greater detail. He sees it and deciphers a signal with encoded satellite signals. He thinks it's a countdown clock to an alien coordinated assault. Marine F-18 pilot Captain Stephen Hiller, meanwhile, is spending the event at home with his family. The boy of his girlfriend tells him and his lover about the extraterrestrials, but they ignore him. Upon stepping outside, Captain Hiller spots a helicopter circling above and looks over to see the massive ship moored above the city. After getting back to the office, David tells his co-worker that the spacecraft and its destroyers are preparing to launch a devastating attack by positioning themselves in major cities. The aliens are coordinating their actions with a single signal, but that signal will go out entirely in 6 hours. As President Whitmore addresses the nation, he and his co-worker watch in terror as his colleague freaks out. David contacts his ex-wife, Constance Spano, who is the director of communications at the White House, without delay to inform her that she is in grave danger while she is there. After assuring David that he is merely experiencing paranoia, Constance ends the call. After watching his father, Julius, on television, David makes the decision to accompany Constance to Washington. Russell Cass, a former fighter pilot and combat veteran, claims to access Derek that he and his children were subjected to experiments by extraterrestrials a decade ago. In order to escape any potential danger, Russell makes the decision to leave the area they are in. As soon as David and Julius step foot in the nation's capital, demonstrators disperse all over the White House. In an effort to get access to the premises, David tries to get in touch with Constance once more. Once David has her to agree to let them in, he informs President Whitmore of the approaching attack. He uses an example to show how the extraterrestrials intend to carry out their plans on Earth. The government needs to take swift action because the clock is ticking down. The extraterrestrials launch a directed energy weapon assault as the Air Force approaches the spacecraft. Major city evacuations in the United States are ordered by President Whitmore without delay. Unfortunately, it has already happened. David and Julius are among the president's associates who are boarding a helicopter to safety as the countdown ends. The cities they target are leveled by the tremendous explosion caused by the destroyer's devastating beam. People are screaming and shaking in their homes because they are unable to escape the traffic. Because of the enormous eruptions, most of the remaining population perished. The once thriving locations are now reduced to ruins. Captain Heller's fiancée Jasmine is in gridlock with her son Dylan when the explosion happens. Running to a tiny chamber within the tunnel upon exiting allowed them to escape. Everything in the world that was left behind is a total mess. On July 3rd, there are no signs of life. The Black Knights, a Marine Corps squadron, spearhead the American counterattack. They take part in an attack on a destroyer in the Los Angeles area. The destroyer is protected by force fields, so the squad's weapons cannot penetrate them. Whenever the squad approaches it, as their shields are released, smaller enemy ships annihilate the Black Knights and their bases. Since the extraterrestrials are heavily favoring the fight, the generals order the squadrons to abandon the mission. At the same time, Captain Heller dodges the assailant's gunfire and, with his jet running low on fuel, lures him to the Grand Canyon. He sends his jet's parachute tumbling down on the assailant, blinding it and causing it to crash. Survived the jet crash that Captain Hiller ejected from. As he furiously approaches the downed assailant on Air Force One, he punches the extraterrestrial inside, sending it unconscious. President Whitmore and his staff deliberate on how to handle the situation following the announcement that the North American Aerospace Defense Command has been disbanded. They argue over whether an executive order to evacuate the major cities under attack should have been announced. Since David's dad had recorded some evidence of a prior trip to Area 51 in the Nevada desert, he implies that the U.S. government was unaware of the assailants. By denying the existence of Area 51, the president dismisses him. Nevertheless, he is informed by the defense secretary that it does. Captain Hiller uses his parachute to cling to the alien's corpse as he drags it across the desert. He hails for assistance as he observes a procession of vehicles drawing near. Some of the people who manage to escape the explosion are these. He begs Russell for assistance when he encounters him. The head of state makes his way to the lab. He is shown around by Dr. Brakish-Shokin, the head scientist. He then unveils the spacecraft they're studying right now. Since the aliens and humans share the same air, Dr. Oken explains that their biochemistry is very similar. Evidently, they do not employ auditory means of communication. But the Area 51 gang thinks they can have telepathic conversations. As he has done before, Dr. Oken continues to display 3 of the aliens' preserved bodies to the group. As soon as Captain Hiller arrives at Area 51 with the captured alien, the staff and soldiers immediately begin to examine it in preparation for the procedure to remove the outer suit. It shows the alien awakens and murders the operating room personnel as the living being within. It even gets the president to talk to it through Dr. Rogan's voice, even though they're both outside the glass. A command to release it is given to the group. Can the invaders and humans coexist peacefully? President Whitmore poses this question to the extraterrestrial. No peace, the extraterrestrial responds. Afterwards, it sneaks into President Whitmore's head using its telepathic abilities. Personnel were able to shoot the extraterrestrial, killing it, while Dr. Oken was momentarily rendered immobile. The president was able to decipher the aliens' plans, which primarily involved attacking planets, wiping out their life forms, and plundering their resources, while he was immobilized. He gives the order for the bombers to launch an attack on one of the spacecraft. Once again, the weapon explodes without penetrating the force field. This is the reason the president orders the return of the remaining bombers. The First Lady, who happens to be the wife of the president, Marilyn Whitmore, is stuck in Los Angeles with the son and girlfriend of Captain Heller. Captain Hiller swoops in and saves the day, taking them back to Area 51 to meet up with the squad. When the president's wife experiences uncontrollable internal bleeding, one of the resident doctors breaks the news to him. He reassures her that everything will be all right. While that is happening, the First Lady passes away on July 4th. In order to show everyone how the attacker's shield works, David calls everyone together. His laptop's program that can disable the attacker's shield is still active, so he keeps doing that. You can see right through the enemy ship because the bullet pierces it. An alien attacker who has recently become operational is to be used by David as a means to access the alien mothership in space. Once inside, he proposes a plan to introduce a computer virus that will destroy the force field surrounding the Earth-based destroyers and attackers. Heller, Captain, offers to pilot the assailant. He should go with Hiller so they can upload the virus to the mothership, David says. With little human resources available, the United States begins to communicate its plan to military bases around the globe through Morse code in order to coordinate an attack. Volunteer pilots, including President Whitmore and Russell, who seeks vengeance on the aliens, are summoned by the commander to begin their mission. Prior to Captain Hiller's departure for his mission, he and Jasmine decide to tie the knot. Their ring bearer is Dylan, and their witnesses are Constance and David. Holding hands before taking off, the former lovers reconnect at this moment. A speech is delivered by President Whitmore concerning the new Independence Day. As they say their goodbyes to David, Julius and Constance simultaneously hope that he fills the air. As they near the mothership, Captain Hiller and David get ready to launch the attacker. In the face of the approaching alien destroyers at Area 51, President Whitmore assumes command of the United States jet fighters. Hordes of assailants encircle them on the mothership. It appears as though thousands of extraterrestrials are plotting a full invasion of Earth. They successfully implant the virus after reaching the center of the mothership. Despite the force field being broken, the squad's missile supply is quickly depleted. They dispatch additional assailants and advance. As soon as hostilities break out, people begin to flee their homes. In order to launch its energy weapon against the base, the spacecraft's underbelly opens up. After confirming via radio that he has one last rocket, Russell fires it. Nevertheless, he opts to take his own life by launching a kamikaze attack on the alien weapon after his firing mechanism becomes stuck. The entire spacecraft is destroyed in the explosion, resulting in the triumph of the humans. Captain Hiller is unable to detach himself from a clamp upon returning to the mothership. As they exchange heartfelt thanks, they light up cigars and prepare to detonate the nuclear weapon. The instrument of warfare gets to an administrative station directed by an alien officer. His ship has become unsecured as he aggressively speeds it at the hole where they arrived, nearly fleeing in the final minute. The mothership explodes instantly. They arrive on the planet safely and they enjoy their victory cigars. The entire squad commemorates and links while everybody else of mankind glorifies and delight as humans have claimed the land they call home again. To view additional videos similar to this, subscribe now. Turn on notifications and left it like it truly helps the channel out. Much obliged for your time.